What's up, everybody? My name is Jeremy,
And I'm Jade.
and together we make up the New Heights Marriage Podcast because,
We're married.
exactly, that's our resume for a marriage podcast. And so, man, welcome back. Glad you're here.
I'm glad you're here.
I was talking to the people, but I'm also glad that you're here. I'm always glad that you're here. And so, man, excited to chat with you tonight. Like we haven't been around each other all day long.
All
and
day.
Chatted about everything.
Let's chat some more,
Let's chat some more.
shall we?
And so, we just want to give a big thank you to everybody who's listened. We've had great responses on the past couple, especially the one talking about the things that annoy one another.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
That was fun.
I've got my next list going.
So we'll do that one again. But it also leads in perfectly to tonight. Now,
Can I stop you?
yes,
I never thought I would say this, but can you turn yourself up a little more?
in your ears.
Yeah, I feel like I can't hear you.
Hey, well, that's a good sign.
There you are.
Hey, how you doing?
Your beautiful
You
voice.
love my voice.
Sorry.
But that leads us perfectly into the conversation tonight. Now, we are, without argument, the most perfect couple. Am I right?
Absolutely. We never argue.
We never argue.
Never disagree.
We never fight.
No, never.
I think we're pretty great.
We're awesome.
No, we have wars. Would you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Wars.
But
That
do we
was
fight?
great. Of course.
Of course we do.
Every night we put on boxing gloves
Mm-hmm.
and we just hit each other.
And we just so I'm gonna be going to jail right after this podcast airs. So
It'll be fun though, right?
yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. No, but in any marriage, in any relationship, but especially marriage, people fight. I feel like it's a normal thing. Now, some couples may do it differently. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And so, but in all the fighting, can you grow in the fight?
You're
Can
asking me
we
to
get
them.
better? I'm just making a
You should-
statement.
okay, gotcha.
It's a rhetorical question.
Okay.
It's a big word for tonight.
Wow.
Can we just be honest with the people right now?
Sure.
We've been in a fight pretty much all weekend. And so, not all weekend.
All weekend.
It was really
That's
one day.
One day.
Okay, so this is something interesting that happens. I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but when you're in a fight, doesn't it just feel like it lasts forever?
Are you asking me or the people?
Yeah. I mean, doesn't it feel like that when we're in a fight that it just lasts forever?
It really does.
It feels like we've been fighting for 10 years.
Yeah. It was just one day.
It was just one day. And so
or
now
half a day.
let's break down why we were fighting. Now, we don't have to get into details because I would win that battle. I would win that argument.
Well.
But, no, I would lose probably.
What were we arguing about?
I think we were both drained.
Yeah.
We had a double
wedding
wedding weekend. Both weddings were great. They were awesome. But they do tire you out, obviously. Those are late nights for both of us. Waking up early with the kid. We had to turn right back around and get ready for a wedding. And so
It's just a lot.
it's a lot going on. So tempers were high, I would say. I don't remember. See, this is so funny.
You don't even remember.
Why were we fighting?
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
It was about whether or not we wanted to take Teddy to the beach.
Oh, yeah. This is so bad. This is so bad. So on one of the last podcasts, I think the last one before this episode, I surprised you with a trip to the beach.
Which can I say thank you? I don't
can.
feel like I said thank you.
You didn't.
I did after we cut it.
Yeah.
There was an embrace and
Oh, there was an embrace.
Okay.
Just kidding. I don't think there was.
There wasn't.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll stop. Continue.
Again, my grandmother and my mother and my family listen to this.
Well, we have a child. How do they think they got here?
Okay. So anyway, I did tell you thank you.
Yes.
And after we cut it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I appreciate it. So, and this is usually how fights in marriage happen. We were planning a good thing, And then we just started to talk about the details of that good thing, and it led to an argument.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it wasn't even a big argument.
It really wasn't.
But what happens with me and Jade, and we're just being transparent because it's fun, and we love each other, right?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Just checking. We tend to escalate things, and that's what some marriages do. Now, I hear rumors that there's people out there who don't fight. Do you believe it?
Those people, if they do, those people are weird.
Those people are weird.
Or they don't spend enough time together.
Yes.
Maybe.
Or they just have the same conflict resolution, which we'll talk about.
Or they're very good at that.
Or they're very good at that. We do fight. Those fights, they don't last very long. They feel like they last very long, but I feel like we get over them pretty quick. But they can. We do escalate before it gets better. So I don't know if anybody else is like that. But
and here's the thing. I don't know if we're going this far into it right now.
Well, we're into it.
Okay. Well, the thing with me and you is we both think we're right.
Yes. And I'm right.
And we both like to have the last word, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that's where our personalities clash sometimes. Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're both we both love each other. We both love hanging out, but we're both independent, or could be if we wanted to be. And I definitely think both of us think we're right all the time. 100%.
Did we resolve this conflict, or are we talking about that part yet either?
Did we resolve the fight we had?
Yeah.
I think. Okay. I'm interested in what people have to say about this. So if you find a way to text us or comment on something or YouTube or comment somewhere, let us know. Like, for most of our fights, we just eventually come together. Like, I think today, we went to bed angry. That whole thing, don't go to bed angry, that doesn't happen.
It's okay. Sometimes you do. It's fine.
Sometimes you do. But we woke up, and I think within the span of like 2 hours of me being gone to the office at the church, it was like we had to communicate about 10 different things.
Yeah.
And you just called me and were like, look, we have to communicate about stuff, so we're going to either get over this crap or not. So it's like,
I think it was literally like the first time I had to call you about something with our business. I'm like, crap, I got to call him.
and we can't
just ignore each other.
Yeah,
and then by
on.
the third time I had to call you, I was just like, you know what? This is stupid. Like,
and
we have to communicate.
And our lives are so intertwined. We run a business together. We pastor a church together. Like, our lives we both work from home a lot. Like, so our lives are so intertwined that it's hard to keep an argument going, which is probably a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Some people can just like can you imagine? Like different business, they go to their work, you go to your work. And
I can think about
just away from one another.
teaching. I could leave, if we ever had an argument and I was teaching, I could leave the house and be gone at least till 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
And not have to talk to you or text you, or like I could just like leave all that.
Yeah.
But now, like, we have, like, I was communicating with you at 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different.
And we had to overcome pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So,
and we didn't actually resolve anything. We just said pretty much called a truce. Like, hey, let's,
called a truce.
We have too much
Stop
to talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's get over it. It's fine. We'll talk about it later.
It's fine. We'll move on. So fighting in a marriage is normal. If you're listening and you're married, planning on being married, just come to that understanding. Disagreements happen in a marriage. We personally I think both of us agree on this, that they're actually healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't learn there's things I learned about Jade that I could not have learned unless we got in an argument. Now, I'm not saying to seek out argument.
Right.
But I think naturally in life, any people in any relationship, and marriage is no different. As a matter of fact, it's heightened because you're around each other 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially in our situation. And so arguments happen, but growth can also happen in the midst of those arguments.
Right.
Don't you think?
I do think.
And so that brings us into this. So how do we fight? You and me personally. Like, what's our conflict resolution pattern? Like, what's our go-tos? Like, are you comfortable talking about this?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So when we get in an argument, when we get in a fight, what's my go-to? And remember, don't make me sound too bad.
I think I kind of said this earlier. We really like to be right, and we really like to get the last word.
Yeah.
So we go back and forth with our words,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes not very nicely.
Yeah.
And then typically we separate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think usually it's like, who wants to go to the bedroom? Who wants to be in the living room?
Yep.
And then usually, like, I don't know, not that much time passes before one person goes to the other person.
Now, we go to each other, either one setting out to resolve. I've done this multiple times. I've gone to you setting my idea was to resolve this conflict, and you escalate it.
Yeah, I wasn't ready to.
You were not ready.
Yeah.
And so this is a pattern that we do. And so,
actually, this happened yesterday too. I think we argued.
mm-hmm.
We went our separate ways.
Yeah.
I went to the porch.
You went outside on the porch, which I never know if you're like going to get in your car and leave, and I'll never see you again. But so far that hasn't happened.
I don't really leave, but I just went outside.
Yeah.
And you came out there, and I think you started to talk, and you were like, so what happened, or what do we need to talk about? And I just looked at you, and I think I said, I'm not ready to talk about this,
you
or
did.
I'm not ready.
Which is a very mature thing. And I just walked in.
And then you walked in.
I'll either do one of two things. I'll go, and I think this gets under your skin. I can go, if we're in a heated argument and we walk away, I'll go turn on the TV, and I'll sit and just watch something.
Mm-hmm.
And does that annoy you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you think in your mind that I'm just like ignoring the problem and that I'm fine. Like we argued all this stuff and I'm just ignoring the problem. And
Yeah,
but
because
really,
I'm sulking about it, and you're watching TV and living your best life, and I'm like, okay, are you not affected by the situation?
yeah, which in reality I am. It's my go-to to just have something taking up a part of my brain, and then all I'm thinking about is the argument in reality. But you go and you like to be alone, a quiet place, calm yourself. I go distract myself with something, but in my mind I'm thinking about something.
That's accurate.
And so it's been pretty interesting to try to figure that out together, to figure out how each other argues, and to try to find resolution in those things.
And I think we have it pretty worked out for us.
Mm-hmm. Let me hear this formula, please. What's the formula?
Like I said, the formula is we both got to have our words.
Mm-hmm.
We separate.
Yeah.
One of us comes to the other one to fix it or apologize or make it work.
Typically the person that comes?
Usually I like to sulk and let you come to me.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And then we're on the couch watching our show together.
And yeah, everything goes back.
And everything's normal.
And so I would agree with that. I do think that now maybe this is a male thing. Maybe this is like how society has put it, just like, men always have to women are always right. Men always have to apologize in the end, even when I'm right sometimes. And so, but I feel like I do come and I apologize quicker than you do.
That's true.
And sometimes it's even hard to get an apology out of you because that's how right you want to be.
That's also true.
I think we're revealing some stuff about you tonight.
This is a terrible podcast.
Not why?
Because
we're growing. We're learning each
I'm
other.
going to point out some of your flaws.
It's not a flaw. See, that's what we got to...
You said I don't like to apologize.
That's not it's not a flaw. It's just a thing you do that... But I know you're sorry. I know, like, if you ever hurt me or anything like that, like, you would apologize for that.
You don't have to apologize when you didn't do nothing.
And ladies and gentlemen, here we found the problem.
I'm sorry, I had to.
No. So, obviously, marriage has been around for a long time. There's been tons of research about this. And so we started looking this up because, this idea of, You can argue. It can be a normal thing, but not just a normal thing, and but it can be a growth thing. It can be something that you grow in. You can learn one another, and maybe even a little conflict is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that old adage that if you have an easy life, that you won't accomplish great things. And so maybe if your marriage is just, which I don't know one marriage like this, so this is, but what about this? It's so easy now to get a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy easy. I mean, you can do it on the internet. You don't have to see anybody. You don't have to do anything like that. It's so easy to get a divorce that it's so easy to get out of arguments without actually having to test yourself, grow, figure out what you're doing wrong, figure out how your person communicates, figure out how you communicate, and learn stuff about yourself so that you can grow from a situation and get better.
Right.
It's so many people just, get in an argument, let it get out of hand, let the communication die, and then the marriage dies.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just an interesting thing. So there's tons of things that have been researched about this. And so one of the things that research shows, and let's see if we agree with this. That's what I want to do with this little section here. So conflict is inevitable. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. If you're human and you're breathing, you're going to have conflict because we all have our own ideas, own opinions. We want to feel heard, seen. We want our ideas to be right. So, yeah, if you're human and you're breathing, you're going to have conflict.
Yeah. In ministry, we always say this. People are crazy, but God loves them and we do too. So it's this idea that we're all flawed. We're all kind of, and we all have our opinions. We all like, have some ego about us, and we all have these things. And so I do think that conflict is inevitable. So I totally agree with that one. What's the next thing you had over there?
So frequency of conflict. Studies have found that the frequency of conflicts tend to decrease over time in long-term marriages. Couples may learn to manage and resolve conflicts more effectively as they gain experience.
Now, I think that's true in theory.
I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Like, I mean, I know there's couples out there. I mean, maybe not personally, but I'm not going to out them on the podcast. But I know there's couples that don't figure out how to have conflict well, and that leads to unhealthy relationships.
Right. Well, I was thinking too, you mature as people and you mature in your marriage, but your marriage goes through seasons.
Yeah.
So no matter how long you've been married, you may have a rough season, or whether it be financial trouble or just hard decisions you have to make. So, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that one. I mean, I think you get better with it.
I mean, I think you should.
Yeah.
I think that's a goal to reach, is to, that as arguments happen, which we know they're inevitable, so they happen a lot, is to learn to grow from those things. But I don't know if everybody does that.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I mean, and I guess the hope would be that if it increases in frequency, that you would figure it out, and that then it would begin to decrease in frequency, and so that you would have less arguments. And so, but yeah, so that one's a little interesting. So one that was really kind of cool, we were looking at, researchers have identified different conflict resolutions in couples. And so some of the ones that are there, and you tell me if we fit in these categories.
Okay.
So one is a problem solver. Typically, I think they say men fall in this category, that they're like, there's the thing, like if you come to your husband and you just want to complain about something, and everybody likes to do that, that a husband will say, okay, well, here's what we can do this, when sometimes you just want to complain. Mm-hmm. I think men get the rap on that, but I love to complain about stuff too and don't want a fix to it.
You love to complain.
Do I?
Oh.
And so there's problem solvers. There's withdrawal, which I think we talked about, kind of I do sometimes. Confrontation. And passive aggression. I think we go through all of those. I think this is the whole thing. I think we go through every single one of those. And so obviously the way around that is to communicate effectively. But man, it's hard to communicate when you're fighting, because everything that a person says just gets blown out of proportion. I mean, I think that's the kind of whole idea of a fight, right? I mean, that's the whole idea of a fight, is that emotions are high, feelings are high, and you say things you don't mean. And so I think the number one thing in a marriage, and something that I think we've done well, we've obviously gotten better with it over the past 7 years, is to know that things said in a fight are not the real feelings, that they are meant to push buttons. They're sometimes meant to hurt feelings, and that, things just get blown out of proportion.
Yeah, I was going to say, just some people have heard this, that like, oh, the truth comes out, like that's what you really meant. But like you said, sometimes it is more just to push buttons. And
I think so. And that comes with us wanting to be right. Sometimes wanting to be right is gaslighting the other person, making the other person feel like they're wrong. I think that stuff is unhealthy, and I hate that, we even have some of those things sometimes, but I think everybody kind of goes through stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's definitely, it's good to have, and we believe in this, it's good to have grace in every conflict, in every marriage. It's good to have compassion for one another. And one of the big things is having empathy for the other person. And this is something that I think you do beautifully, better than me probably, but empathy plays like a crucial role in marriage disagreements, because it allows you to feel how someone else feels. It allows you to kind of go through that stuff. So empathy in a marriage, especially in conflict, it helps you understand the other person's perspective. Now, that's really hard to do in an argument. And so I do think one of the healthy things that we do and that people can do is to separate. And so arguments often are not solved in the heat of the argument. The flames got to kind of die down a little bit. So, but you can really start to see the other person's point of view, their feelings. You can understand that, hey, Jeremy called me a jerk, but he really didn't mean that. And, this is why he's feeling this. He felt his feelings were hurt, or those kind of things. And so empathy allows us to validate one another's feelings. And so I think that's one of the most powerful tools. Like when we get in an argument, and you may not think that you hurt me, like you hurt my feelings on something. You coming to me and saying, and sometimes I have to communicate that, which is, those are my feelings. And so it's hard for you to feel my feelings. And so for me to say, hey, Jade, I know you didn't mean it this way. You may not have thought about it like this, but when you said this thing about me or this thing to me, like you'll say, I'll just take an example from our recent argument. You said, man, you're always so mean to me. And now you said always so mean to me, but you didn't mean, Jeremy, you're mean just always. And so, but I took it that way, and it hurt my feelings, and so that kind of led into escalation. It's a little bit bigger argument. But so I think being able to understand, and one of the most powerful tools is what I was saying, is when you come and say, hey, I said that. I didn't mean it to hurt your feelings, obviously, but I'm sorry, and I understand why you felt that way. And so that's just that's kind of a beautiful thing, but it's hard to think of. So are there tools? Is there ways to think about this stuff when you're fighting? What do you think? When you're in the heat of the argument, it's so hard to remember techniques.
Yeah,
you can do all the research and all the techniques and stuff. But
I think the easiest one to remember in the heat of the moment is, let's just separate, or let's table this conversation. I feel like that's kind of the go-tos.
Yeah.
And
and what that does, and what having empathy for one another, which you should have in any healthy relationship, marriage or otherwise, but to let go of that whole idea of I got to win this thing.
Yeah.
And so, and here's the reality. I haven't won tons of arguments that I had the better side of the argument. You know what I mean? And so I'm sure you feel the same way. And so, but you got to let go of that idea that you got to win this thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
Yeah.
That's
a good point.
And
you can't always want to be the winner, the last one to get a word in.
Yeah.
And
it's best to separate for a second. Then it's best to come together, shut up, listen. If you are going to talk, ask questions like, "Hey,
Yeah.
what made it get to this level? What I say that hurt your feelings? What did I say that escalated this to be not about planning our beach trip, but took it to a whole nother level?" Like I think that's good stuff. Avoiding blame, not criticizing the other person, which is such a petty thing, but man, we all do it. It's just your immediate go-to is to think about what this person did yesterday, or what, just like you said, like a personality, not defect, but just a personality quirk that bothers you or pushes buttons, annoys you, and you just kind of go for those things.
And I think too, sometimes we just have to realize that we could talk about it at a later time. Like, hey, I can see that this is just not a good time. You've been staring at a screen for 8 hours. Yeah. I've been with a 1-year-old who won't take his nap. Yeah. And so sometimes when we come together, it needs to just be more of a, hey, we just need to chill and hang out and not talk about anything serious. We're not in the brain space. We don't have the, we just don't. Yeah. What am I trying to say?
No,
words are hard.
It's what we've been talking about. It's empathy.
Yeah.
It's realizing that this person has had a lot of stress on them today. They've had a lot coming at them. They've had a lot of other conflicts, maybe in things with maybe a baby or maybe with work or whatever it is, and so it's having empathy for one another and just kind of stopping there.
Absolutely.
And so, those are all good tips. Look, we don't have it figured out, but it's always good to think. Now, one rule we have broken this rule, but you can't make rules without first maybe breaking a few, is how we deal with conflict, fights, all-out wars in front of our son.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in a home where fights were normal, and I think that's probably the story for a lot of people. And so fights were normal. Divorce was in my family, all these kind of things. And so conflict resolution was maybe not a thing really talked about much. Maybe not. I think these things are more talked about now in 2023 than they were in 1990, whatever, when I was growing up. And so, but one thing we have just said, because I remember fights, and from my childhood. And one thing is just, we don't want to expose Teddy to that.
Yeah.
And so, we have, unfortunately. Now he's too little to remember anything. So, but yeah, we've had those things.
Yeah, we obviously don't want to argue or fight in front of Teddy. As he gets older, I think especially just because, he doesn't remember stuff now, but he will, and you don't want to see his mom and dad upset with each other. And at the same time, it's not always going to be avoidable. Mm-hmm. And I think how we handle our fights and arguments will also teach him how to handle conflict. It can be a really beautiful thing as long as, we get to display those conflict resolution in front of him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you can't. And I think that's a big thing with people of our generation, is there this idea. I was just having this conversation today with someone, but this idea that you can shield your child, and it comes from such a good place, where you want to protect your child and you don't want them to experience things. And I was just talking to a friend today about we experienced growing up, our single moms being broke. And so me and this friend were talking about, like we experienced cars being repoed and power going out and water getting shut off and having to boil water on the stove so we could take, and that was just our moms doing their best, working 2 and 3 jobs and doing all these things. And so there is a desire to never let Teddy experience those things.
Right.
But we were talking about, but you don't want to just give them everything.
Right.
You don't want to worship your child. You don't want to, put them so much on a pedestal that they don't know how to deal with, because life is conflict.
Yeah.
And so it's such a hard thing. But we put it in these terms, see what you think. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting security for your child.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a stable home, a stable marriage, stable power, stable water, stable mortgage being paid. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But conflict happens, even between me and you. And you said it beautifully. Like, he needs to know how to solve conflict in a healthy way.
Right. And I just thought about this. You can turn on the TV and watch any reality show or just anything and see conflict and it handled the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So I want him to learn it from us.
Yeah, that's great.
So
you're responsible for teaching your kid how they should think.
Absolutely.
People may disagree with that, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
So you're responsible for teaching your kid how to think and how to act and how to handle things. And so, hopefully we'll just keep getting better at it. And hopefully you will too. And so, hey, we all argue, we all disagree, we all fight. And so it's just about learning how to handle it well. And so, but Jade, I love you.
And I love you.
And so we thank you so much for listening to us on the New Heights Marriage Podcast. If you've stuck around this long, we appreciate it so much. If you could like, share, comment, I promise you it does so much for us if you review these podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, wherever you're listening. We have so many people listening in different spots, and so it's so great. But we appreciate it. And so maybe share with us. We would love if you would share a story with us about how you've handled conflict, and so we could really learn from each other. And so I think that's a beautiful thing.
I love it.
And so we'll see you next
time.
Week. The New Heights Marriage Podcast is produced by Cunningham Creative. They're a mobile podcasting service serving the greater Birmingham area. If you have a business, have an idea, have a story to tell, let us help tell that story, reach the audience that you want to. And so we appreciate you so much. You can check us out at cunninghamcreative.online.